Good morning and welcome to Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. It's Tuesday, the 17th day of March 2026, and thank you for starting your day and morning with us. My name is Akure Ido.
And I am Samson Balogun. We are glad you could join us this morning. All right, this is Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. Stay with us
This morning. Good morning to you, Samson.
A beautiful morning to you, Hanolu Akbo.
Yes.
Glad to be back here on the same table with you to discuss major stories shaping discourse across the country this morning. And we're talking about the Federal Airport Authority and, of course, the police. For me, I going through that story, I feel like a lot is going on of course, in the security system in the country. And the most important thing to do is to communicate. And when you communicate well, because that is the bedrock of strong security architecture in the country. Otherwise, everyone will be, everywhere will be in shambles, and then you won't even know where to turn to and what to do per time. Unfortunately, the police command in Ondo State says these four suspects arrested at Akure Airport in Ondo are not bandits, but logistics suppliers. I mean, how do you say, I mean, the park of a match is just a park and not match itself? Well, regardless, they have a connection, they have a role to play in these heinous acts being perpetrated across the country. So it is safe to say that they are also part of the whole system. But then, you know, a lot is going on in the country right now, and I think for every security apparatus in the country, everyone has to be on the same table.
I guess, well, like you mentioned too, it's very unbecoming, really. If you have to think about how this unfolded, especially, you know, I was saying in like I usually say for jokes, I say, what's the difference between this and that? It's just is and not. And in this sense, if I want to say this is something, I can as well face another person and say that is something. I'm talking about something. It's still the same case. Yoruba would say, I really cannot, I don't want to interpret that. But yes, it's more like there's no difference between this and that. So you can also imagine how that, if you say it was 4 bandits and some said they were not bandits, they were just suppliers, they were bandit enablers. So what do you call them? Maybe another name, you can maybe generate another name. But, you know, I'm going to start off from that conversation to say there are key issues about these discrepancies in their message and communication still shows that the security architecture in the country requires a lot of education, a lot of training, a lot of retraining, a lot. I mean, so that's one. The second point is this: there seems to be an institutional discord, disharmony between those. Because if Faan says we got this number, these people, and then another police force came out to say, you know what, they were not bandits, they were just enablers. And so you want to ask the question, what happened to the preliminary investigation that should have been conducted by both parties? I mean, this should be it shows that there's an institutional disharmony between them. The institution of Faan is not in alignment, not in accordance with the police. Because if you have that situation, I mean, you can even save them to say, okay, based on preliminary investigations and maybe subsequent investigations, we discovered what was released by Faan is not true, and then this is not, you know, there's a way to communicate, right? You said it. If there's anything to say, there's a way to say it, right? And so you can make it sound like, yes, based on our advanced investigation, we discovered. Not that what they said is, you are coming to refute a claim, to say what they said is wrong, and you understand that, but I know this is the case. Now, just last week, I think this is the genesis of this issue, and I'll draw points from what happened. There was a particular conference, a fireside chat with the governor of Ondo State, you know, Lucky Ayedatiwa, and then he was mentioning that there are no bandits. In fact, he said it in the state, you know, he said it categorically that he can assure people that except for that Owo massacre that happened then, there was no any other situation. But we have seen cases where there are protests in Ondo State. A lot of people are saying there are claims of bandits entering and some killing people. But he went on to say, you know, there's no bandit. And then he was making reference to the police report to say the police can tell you better that there is no. So this sounds to me like, okay, yes, there's been claims about banditry in the state. Right. Police is coming out to say, you know what, there's no bandit, because we are aligning with what the governor said. Because maybe that's what the report they even gave the governor in the first place, to say there's no bandits. Maybe we can accept that. How about the fact that if you have this kind of context between Faan saying there, so Faan is trying to make it saying like, oh yes, we captured bandits, and then the police is saying that those were not bandits. So everybody is trying to raise, it's like an institutional fight where everybody is trying to make a point to say we did something very vital, and then we've been able to, so I just wanted to speak to that issue to say there's a fragmental security engagement between them. There's a fragmental security communication, right, especially to the public, because at the end of the day, who gets the brunt of this? The people in the state and every other place that will be coming, because everybody is scared that, oh, bandits at the airports, and you can imagine a lot of things and reasons why people will be afraid, because you've said there is bandits, some said there is bandits, another authority came to say, oh no, they were not bandits, they were just an enabler. So we can't really find the difference between these people that you are calling. But I just want to say that this strategic concern is really something we should look into, because we understand that public trust, you can trust, especially, like I would say, trust is gained in trickles, in drops, but it is lost in buckets. You cannot imagine how much of trust can be eroded just because of a statement. So maybe our institutions need to understand that for every pronouncement, for every statement, there has to be a repercussion. There's even something we call unintended consequence. So if you say, if we have a disconnected bodies in the state that are supposed to be protecting or manning a place, and then they come out to release different reports, who do you believe? It's a case for Nigerians to say, so how do we now trust these people? So if another day, another incident comes, and then they say this, so we are going to wait for police to make another refuting, or to say, oh, that did not happen, or that did happen. But this really shows that the security architecture in the country needs a lot of restructuring in terms of communication, teaching, maybe revamping as it is. That's one. And then again, why can we not have it more coordinated? Well, let's have the institutions work together, because that's how big. There's a saying, Yoruba would say that if we put our hands together, then we can use it to bang our chest to say, okay, everybody's on this, and then we can work things out. So, but if you have a disconnected body to say everybody's trying to make a claim, everybody's trying to protect their institution, because like I was saying, this is an institutional fight much more than the narrative. So the airport authority would like to say our security is tight, we got bandits. The police would like to say, don't spoil our work. There's no bandits in this state. We are doing our work. So there's no, so that's exactly my claim.
You see, I think this also has to do with, credit for what is being done. Sometimes when you don't want to share the glory, you don't want to share the credit with someone else, you usually make some statements that makes it feel like, yes, see, it is my doing. However, I think Ondo State has witnessed and faced a lot of sporadic attack of bandits in recent times, including kidnapping. But is it safe to say that Ondo State is not traditionally a banditry hotspot in the country like you have in Zamfara, Sokoto, and Katsina, and some other places, including Borno, where insurgency is really, facing, they are really facing a lot of attacks from insurgents in that part of the country. But let's talk about what this could mean for security agencies in the country, because oftentimes we talk about how it happened, but then what will be the long implication of everything that is being said and done at this time? This could cause interagency communication failure. Okay, and it's already happening, because Faan is an agency. Of course, you also can tell that the police is also a body on its own. In fact, it is arguably the primary security network in the country. So definitely there will be a discord when it comes to taking credit for the arrest that was made. But don't forget that even with Faan, okay, police officers also work with the Federal Airport Authority. So automatically, I don't see where this bad energy is coming from. It should be, a kind of responsibility that is shared. We get intel, we pass it to you, you act upon that, and then you nip it in the bud, arrest, criminals, and then you display them, probably, get a press conference done, and then you tell Nigerians that this is exactly what we have been able to do. But unfortunately, there has been this back and forth, and I can tell that this is coming off the back of who takes the credit for what has been achieved in terms of security. Also, let's talk about intelligence gathering and dissemination gap. At this time, I think one more thing that will happen is that when Faan gets intel, it might be difficult for them to pass it across to the police. They would want to act up on their own, thinking, oh, even if we get this across to the police, we won't get the kind of credit we deserve. And this might be a problem in the long term, because what if you get a kind of intel that you cannot handle internally? who do you call? It's the police. And if the police cannot handle it, if it's becoming an external aggression on the sovereignty of the country, then the Nigerian army is called upon to act upon that. That is the chain of command when it comes to security. Internal security is handled by the police. And then when there is a form of external aggression, the Nigerian army takes over. But then what happens is intel is passed down through the chain of command. And that's where we are also talking about state policing. If we have state police in the country, it starts from the grassroots, from the local government level. Oh, there's an intel that so people are trying to gather, and that there's going to be, chaos, and we don't want that to happen. Then you pass that to the police. And then the IG feels like, oh, we cannot handle this. Then the NSC gets an information and then disseminates information to the Nigerian army, and everyone acts upon that. And of course, order is restored back to the nation called Nigeria. But then the dissemination gap was obvious in what we just saw in the dispute between the police and, of course, the Faan, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, because there was a gap. If there was proper communication between these two agencies, I don't think they would issue different statements. In fact, there will be a unified statement that will be released on both their pages, and then we'll know that it was a coordinated mission. And then Faan gave us intel, and then we're able to sweep in and then get it sorted. But unfortunately, the seed of discord that has been planted a long time ago is still germinating and is growing. And you can set the nation on fire if no one actually nips this in the bud as soon as possible. Now, this has disrupted the chain of command in the security apparatus of Nigeria. Okay, Faan came out, released a different press statement. Police also did the same. However, this should be passed down to police and then to the IG and definitely to the presidency if need be. The presidency may also talk about it and say, look, we did this yesterday. Kudos to the Faan and, of course, the Nigerian Police Force for coming, sweeping in and then making sure that we do not have further catastrophe on our hands in the country. Unfortunately, that has been spoiled by, everybody trying to be the hero of the day. We did this, we did that. I mean, when the situation is as dire as that of what we have in Nigeria, what matters is not the credit. What matters is that it is done. Because eventually, if that attack was carried out, if the bandits got their supplies, your family members might even be part of that region where they are to attack. And then, who does credit help at that time? When you cannot even save your own family members. Exactly. When you had the opportunity to do it. So, there are processes to these things. And we should not get carried away by trying to take credit when larger security crisis still looms in the country, because we have seen it happen before. And the bureaucratic bottleneck that has to do with assignments being carried out in the country really should be removed. The president has done a lot when it comes to breaking down bureaucracy in some areas, especially when it comes to the forex, floating the naira, making the market forces determine how much the naira is. And that is one. Two, making sure that, yes, petrol might be a little bit scarce, might be a little bit expensive, but it's not scarce. You can find it anywhere. Walk into any filling station, you will buy it. The only thing is it might be expensive. That, for me, is one of the things we want to see. We don't want to queue in the filling stations, but then we want to make sure that this good, no matter how expensive, it is available. When it is available, we can now talk about price. So, bottlenecks should also be removed in the area of security, in the security setup of the country too. We shouldn't have issues where one agency wouldn't want to work with the other when lives and properties are at risk. So let's just make sure that everything is as simple as possible, as simple as ABC. Because if we have to think too much to save lives, then what exactly are we doing? I mean, it might just eventually be a mess.
Let me catch up with you on your thoughts. When you mentioned that, especially with the discord between them, the communication and how it has been even vast and all of that. So I wanted to come in from this angle to say, maybe there could be different ways to look at this. Some would say that maybe Faan was just too spontaneous. Maybe they were just in a hurry. They were possessed by ambition just to speak. Because they did not give the available opportunity for them to do proper investigation before coming out to speak. Maybe that's one. But how about the fact that what if they had waited for the police to come out with the report? that incident happened some days before the report of the police came out. So we can say that, must we wait to get such information out? Must we wait that long? Because that can be the conversation. Because if the police is blaming them to say, you guys did not wait till we finished investigation, you went on to release this, we should have been abreast of this. But how long should it be before we get a report? That could be the line of argument for Faan to say, we know your bureaucratic system is always too long, so we don't want to go through the process. We just want to disseminate the information as fast as we can, which is, of course, a valid point from them. But, you know, all of this too, I was trying to check, so why is it very important that Ondo State must be very, very intentional about security? We understand Ondo shares borders with Kogi State. Kogi State, for one, is actually closer to the north. And of course, we can say that from what we've seen the recent crisis in Kogi, even not recent, of course, we've had issues. So we can say there are claims that people, insurgents, are moving from those regions down to Ondo. For one, there are many things in Ondo that they are looking for too, because some have also said there's an ideological banditry system that is run in the country. They are looking for places with natural resources, with resources that they can take over and then, you know, barricade the area and start, you know, mining all of those things. So we see this limestone, there's oil, there's a lot of things in Ondo State for one. So we can say, okay, maybe that's why it is very important to them. There's also fishing, there's agriculture too. At some point, they were the largest producer of cocoa in the country. So we can tell that Ondo State has so many things to offer. So we would not be surprised if there are chances or plans to infiltrate the state and get some of those resources, take over those regions like they used to, and then start exploiting those resources even when everybody's not you know, getting a brief of that. But yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. But to take it a step further now, to say, sometimes when we have issues like this, I ask the question, so who bells the cat? Who is supposed to be responsible for this misdemeanor? Who is supposed to be responsible for this miscommunication? Can we have it? Because I know, again,
someone should take responsibility.
Someone should take responsibility. Oh, it was the police fault. We did not get the information on time. Oh, Faan, we are not supposed to give out this information. And that, I'm not saying that will solve the situation, but that would curb, you know, subsequent issues. We can always have issues, right? I know conflict exists because there's a word called conflict resolution. That's why if there's no conflict, there's no conflict resolution, right? So we can look out for ways to, okay, so there's a problem. There's an imminent problem. How do we solve it? That's more important. And like you said, people's lives are in danger. To say bandits exist or bandit does not exist is not really all that matters. Can we beef up security in certain areas and ensure that those places are really well secured? And again, lastly, let me just say that there's also that conversation of how the distance of that place that happened, Elewo, I can't remember the name of the place, you know, and then there's a point to say, okay, I think it happened at Eleyewo or something. I can't really pronounce that well. And it's about 3 kilometers away from the airport. Yeah. So that's the conversation to say, what exactly defines the border or the perimeter of the airport? To say, because this can be, why they are saying this is because if a security breach happens at the airport, then it tells a lot of story, because that's supposed to be a very secure, because that's why
they have to be on high alert.
Exactly, because just a security breach in, for example, God forbid, someone can plant a bomb inside a plane, right? And that's disaster in numbers. You have to count the number of persons that will be involved in that. That's crazy. You can also, if someone carries a bomb and throws it maybe somewhere in the air, or find a way to do that, and that can be a problem for a national security problem, right? So we can tackle these things, especially at the airport level. We should not have these kind of issues again.
Well, it's unfortunately it has happened, and I do hope that the government corrects all of this. And shortly before we go in 30 seconds, before the reason I said that the seed of discord was planted a long time ago was before 1976. The police used to have a very strong intelligence unit called Special Branch at that time, but because of the attempted coup, of course, in Nigeria, that got some people killed. The Nigerian military decided not to trust them with internal intelligence, covert subversion, and political surveillance at that time. So, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration created what now evolved into the DSS and the SSS now. So you might want to call them police, but they are not. They are for intelligence and, of course, for major things we might not even discuss. But basically, that was when this issue, the whole issue began. But then we can go on and talk about why it happened. But then what do we do after it has all happened? That's the big question. And I think, just like I said earlier, the bottlenecks surrounding security agencies in the country should be removed. The bureaucracy should be stopped now before it becomes a major problem. And I think that is why we have not really solved the major security crisis battling Nigeria till now. And if all that is done and sorted, I think from there we can move ahead and say, yes, we now have a country not riddled with security challenges. Away from there, let's help you plan your day.